months in Clouded Leopard territory and never come across one. And they are very, very shy and very elusive and very difficult to find. Here is their range. Now, I'm going to be moving on to South America, and the first one is the largest big cat in the Americas, the Jaguar. Now, the Jaguar is in the same group as the leopard, but it is a lot larger than a leopard. It's also probably the second most powerful big cat alive today. I mean, when you look at it, I mean, it's a fully grown male can probably be about the same build as a heavyweight boxer, but I'll get to that bit later. Jaguars live in South and Central America, as well as parts of Mexico and even the south of the United States. And they like tigers and fishing cats, the jaguars are among the big cats that are most comfortable in the water, because it's where they can go to keep cool during the heat of the day, but it's also somewhere where they can hunt, because jaguars will hunt pretty much anything they can hunt. I mean, their main prey is peccary or tapirs. Well, peccaries are a kind of wild pig, but also, the peccary is a wild pig that lives in South and Central America, and the tapir is the largest forest-dwelling animal in South America. But also, they will eat fish, monkeys, and even when they hunt in the water, they can hunt crocodiles, caiman, and anacondas, pretty much any large predators that inhabit the water. So basically, nowhere in South America is safe from this magnificent cat. And of course, looking at the bulk of the head of a jaguar, it is very, very thick set, and that's because the jaguar has probably the most powerful bite of any big cat. And that's all down to how it kills its prey, because the jaguar does not kill by biting at the throat or the back of the neck. Its canine teeth can be probably a lot longer than my thumb, and they're driven through powerful jaw muscles right through the back of the skull and into the brain of its prey. And its prey, like peccaries and tapirs, they have very, very thick skulls that allow them to power. And so imagine the force that is needed to bite right through the back of the skull and into the brain of a peccary or a tapir. Although, if you think that's scary, think how much less force it would need to bite into a human skull. And then it actually sounds quite frightening when you think about it. As jaguars live in a wide range of habitats in South and in the Americas. They live in jungles like the Amazon, but they also live on open grassland and even wetlands. In fact, probably the best place to see jaguars in the wild is the Pantanal, which is the largest wetland on Earth. But, of course, jaguars, like all members of the cat family, are now classed as endangered. I mean, they're already difficult to find because they're what's known as the master of the shadows, which means they're experts at not being seen. But also they are endangered because their habitats have been destroyed, and they've even been persecuted by humans, and worst of it is jaguars out near cattle ranches quite often, because their natural prey is destroyed ranchers, so the jaguars then have no choice but to target cattle, and that of course angers the ranchers, who then take out their guns and go out and shoot them, which is causing their numbers to drop in the wild. And it doesn't even make any difference, because what the ranchers need to learn is that if they kill one jaguar, another will just take over its territory. It's an endless cycle that will never stop. But fortunately, there are people working to stop these conflicts, with like putting bells on the cattle, but also having specially bred dogs to watch over the cattle to keep the jaguars away, and then they will go out and find other things to eat. But also trying to teach ranchers to live alongside jaguars and coexist with them. And that is another way that people are trying to work to protect them in the wild. And this is their range in South, Central and parts of North America. The light green is their historic range, and as you can see, they were even around the southern states of the USA, but also in much of Mexico and into much of South America. And slowly they are starting to make a comeback, but even if you do go out to find a jaguar, there's still no guarantee that you will see one. But in the Pantanal, you have got a chance. So I've been told. The next and final big cat of the world is this. It's the largest ranging land predator in all the Americas, the puma. The puma goes by many different names. It goes by the puma, the cougar, the mountain lion, the panther, and even the mountain screamer. The puma is found throughout North, Central and South America, but these pumas are found in the Andes, which is the longest mountain range on Earth. And they are the top predator of the Andes, but for many years their behaviour was little studied. Of course, up until recently, scientists were quite sure they knew what the pumas did during the day. They sleep, but what a puma does at night was a different story. And of course, probably the best place in the world to see pumas is the Torres del Paine National Park in Patagonia, right at the southern tip of South America. Of course, there's a higher concentration of pumas there than anywhere else in the world. And one of the main reasons is this, which is their main prey source in the Andes, and this is guanaco. Guanaco are a relative of the camel, but also the continent's most challenging prey, because they stand just over 2 meters tall, are 3 times the weight of an adult puma, and they are constantly alert. Almost impossible to catch during the day, because if they see a threat, they give out a loud whinnying call, and that sets the whole herd on alert. But also, they have a lethal kick, and a well-placed hoof could give the puma a fatal injury. But at night time, the tables are turned. With poor night vision, they are vulnerable to a puma attack, and that's when the puma does much of its hunting. But they have been recorded hunting in the daytime, but that's usually when they have cubs to feed. Of course, the puma is a lot bigger than a leopard, but I mean, it's around about the same size and weight as a fully grown man, but we would be no match for them in a fight. For many years, it was believed that puma interactions usually ended in violence, but recent research and documenting has shown that not all puma interactions end in violence. quite often if a puma's made a kill and another puma turns up, quite often they will share the kill, so they do have a bit of a social side. But another interesting thing about the puma is that, like all members of the cat family, they do a majority of their hunting at night time, and they have eyesight that's about 6 times more powerful than ours, but incredibly, they have a very good distinct eye shine. In fact, their eyes are said to glow bright green in torchlight, which is absolutely amazing. And of course, at night time, they have an advantage over the guanajo, because guanajo, while they have a very keen sense of smell and hearing, at night time they can't see very well, and they're basically vulnerable. And so what the puma has to do is it has to creep to no more than probably about 5 meters before they charge forward, and then they will jump on the guanajo's back, tackle it to the ground, and then it will go for the throat and suffocate its prey. Of course, also, once a puma's made a kill, if it's alone, then of course it's not able to eat an animal of that size in one go. So what they do is, after they've eaten their fill, they do what's called caching their prey, where they basically cover the carcass under a lot of brush, and then to keep it out of the keep it away from the attention of scavengers like vultures, condors, foxes, or even another puma, and then they will come back to probably about 2 or 3 evenings and eat the rest of it. Of course, pumas are solitary for much of their lives, with the exceptions of mothers and cubs, because a mother will usually have 3 or 5 cubs, and she will raise them until they're about 2 or 3 years old. And of course, pumas are one of the most dangerous animals in South America. In fact, they have been known to attack people, but a lot of the time it's if they're frightened, cornered, protecting cubs, or quite often if they haven't eaten for several days and they're very, very hungry. Of course, you don't hear a puma coming. If you're lucky, you see a puma, but of course, if it wanted to, a puma is more than capable of killing a fully grown man. But if you ever do see a puma, it's very, very important that you don't panic, that you stay calm, keep your nerve, and don't run. Because if you do, you will be attacked and it might kill you. Of course, it is desperately rare, but you've always got to have that in the back of your mind. And pumas in the Andes are actually making a real recovery after decades of persecution. Of course, farmers in the Andes, like sheep farmers, are actually learning to live alongside pumas with. One of the ways they're doing it is by having specially bred dogs that they raise alongside the sheep, and that means they can live alongside their sheep, and they can scare away the pumas without the shepherds having to hurt them. So it does show that there is some decency in South America with people living alongside an apex predator. Of course, the Torres del Paine National Park in South America, right in Patagonia, is said to be the best place in the world to see pumas, and of course quite often you will see them during the daytime, but the best time to see them is usually at sunset, when they wake up and they go out looking for dinner, because at that time, after they've been sleeping, they get up and they're very hungry and they go out looking for food. Of course, also, as I've probably said, I've never seen a puma before, but I'd love to go to the Torres del Paine National Park, because it would be a dream come true for me to see a puma and maybe even film one hunting. Let's hope I get to go one day. What's this?